It's just a sad day for us all today. And we've all known just one queen. She's the person we've always looked up to. Somehow. It's just a sad day. Just a very, very sad day.
To say she was loved is an understatement.
What an amazing life, amazing woman. That's all I can say, really. If we had more people like her in the world would be a better place, wouldn't it?
It strangely feels like a death of a family member. It's really quite unusual.
She's been a role model for so many people, Old-fashioned values, everything that we could ever have wanted and more besides.
The woman who was never supposed to be queen, winning over the world with an appeal that spanned the ages.
How she'll be remembered? Humility, respect, dignity, the old-fashioned values that she brought into the modern society. And I hope that people will cherish those and take them forward into the future.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service.
Through conflicts, upheaval, a global pandemic, she remained steadfast.
I'm speaking to you at what I know is an increasingly challenging time.
A calming force for her people.
We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again.
When she did give us a rare glimpse behind the stiff upper lip,
1992 is not a year on which I shall look back with undiluted pleasure.
we loved her all the more.
It has turned out to be an annus horribilis.
Those candid comments coming after a fire at Windsor Castle and the breakdown of 3 of her children's marriages. Annus horribilis indeed. But it was those moments when the mask slipped.
And the red Sussex.
That she really won hearts.
Perhaps you would like a marmalade sandwich. I always keep one for emergencies.
So do I. I keep mine in here. For later.
Lover of horses and, of course, her beloved corgis. Queen Elizabeth had understated sass.
Nah.
A boss behind the wheel. A fashion icon. No colour too bright, no hat too fabulous for Her Royal Highness. Her trademark twinkle was there until the very end. Her devotion to her nation and to her people never fading, while their devotion to her will live on.
Let's take you live back to Buckingham Palace now. A voice and face that you'll know and love. The author Kathy Lett has been good enough to make her way down to the palace for us this evening. Kathy, I know you met members of the royal family and including the Queen many times. Is there a particular meeting with her that stands out for you?
Well, there's 2. I mean, everyone talks about her stoicism, but it's also worth remembering she had a good sense of humour. She was very, very twinkly. And the first time I met her was at Australia House, and I was feeling a bit cheeky. And I remember explaining to her that in Australia we have inverted snobbery. If you can trace yourself back to the convict stock, that makes you like Antipodean royalty. And I said, hello, First and Second Fleet. You know, I'm pretty much a monarch. So from one monarch to another, g'day. And there was this big intake of gasp of breath from her minders, and I thought, oh no, I'm going to the Tower. And of course, she laughed her head off because it was such a relief to be treated like not a porcelain person, but actually as someone real. And then the second time I met her, Lisa knows this story, when I was, her second to last overseas trip, she was going to Australia and she had all the Aussies down to Buck House for a bit of a barbecue. And she'd been meeting Aussies all day. Elle Macpherson was there, Hugh Jackman was there. And I rocked up in my little corgi suit that I've got. It's got corgis on it with tiaras with diamantes sewn on. And I stood in front of her and I said, I hope you like my suit. I wore it just for you, but I'm slightly worried that one of your corgis might mate with my leg. Once more, this asthmatic gasp from her minders. And of course, she threw back her head and laughed called Philip over and said, "Oh, do have a look. It's rather funny, darling." You know, and I thought, isn't that lovely that you could still reach her. She had a warmth about her, and that she didn't boomerang me back to Botany Bay. I'm still here, so it worked out well.
Kathy, we've heard from a few people this evening that the Queen did seem to have a special affection for Aussies, which is surprising because we're not really known for following all the rules and protocols to the absolute letter, just as you didn't.
Yeah, I think that's what she liked about us, that we were a bit mischievous and a bit cheeky. Can you imagine how exhausting it is being surrounded by sycophants and making small talk and all that platitudinous cliche? And it must be so exhausting. And to meet Aussies who are a little bit mischievous, a little bit larrikin, a little bit sparky, pretty much like her husband. I think that's why she fell in love with Philip, because he had the sort of larrikin streak. So yeah, she loved Aussie so much she sent her son out to school at Timbertop. So yeah, she did have a special affection for us.
70 years on the throne as a woman, which was unprecedented, and of course her reign just marks a moment in time. Do you think she was actually a feminist?
It's a really interesting question because, of course, you know, it's an hereditary position, whereas in Australia we like to have a meritocracy. But if you think about the time she came to the throne in the 1950s, when women were expected to be decorative and demure, tethered to the kitchen by their heart and their apron strings, at the time there was a lot of sort of kerfuffle about whether a mother could take the role. You know, she was a mother of 4, so even though she had hot and cold running nannies, she was actually a working mother juggling kids and career in heels and a tiara. And she never really tripped up, except for, you know, around the death of Diana, where she mistimed that, misjudged that. So, you know, you've got to think back to the time. Women couldn't be. There were no female bank managers. There were no female train drivers. Churchill said when she was ascended to the throne in her late 20s, "Oh, you know, she's merely a child." You think a child, a grown woman in her late 20s. So there was a lot of condescension and sexism and misogyny around her. And she did become an iconic, you know, feminist heroine in a way. I mean, she's the most famous woman in the world, as we can see by how many people are just hemorrhaging grief down here at the palace.
Hey, Kathy, can we talk a bit about Charles, King Charles III, as he will now be known? You know him as well. You've met him plenty of times. He's got to manage this transition for himself, for the monarchy, for the nation as well. How do you think he'll do?
Well, it's going to be fascinating because, I mean, I'm a Republican, but I really admire I can't even say it, King Charles. You know, we've got to get used to it because he's such a passionate political person, and he's a devoted environmentalist long before that was really fashionable, and he was pilloried for that as well. But he's not going to go quietly into the monarchy. Of course, he's supposed to sort of rein in, literally, his political passions. But I think he's going to be like an old-fashioned knight on a quest. You'll have everything but one of those great big, jousting sticks, because he really cares about our planet. I think that's going to be his main mission. And even if he's not sort of publicly vocal about it, don't forget he has the ear of the British Prime Minister every week, and also contact with every world leader. So he's going to make an impact in a way I don't think any monarch has in a very long time.
Kathy, the passing of the Queen has meant that the close-knit, what once was close-knit, royal family has all been together in the same room. What do you think this will mean for those relationships which have been pretty fractured in recent times?
Yeah, I mean, we've all followed the royal soap opera for decades. I mean, this is a family that can put the fun into dysfunctional. But anyone who's been through grief and loss, we all know that this can also be an incredibly healing time when family come together and look at the bigger picture. And of course, don't forget that, they've had a lot of trouble with Harry, but now his father is the king. If he doesn't have to just put him on the naughty step, he can put him in the tower. So I think he's going to have to behave a little more. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting to see how it plays out.
Hey, Kathy, I just want to pick up on something you mentioned, because I suspect many people watching will feel something similar to what you described. You said, look, you're a Republican, proudly so, but you have this enormous affection for the Queen. And obviously, there's no single view on the monarchy or indeed the Queen, but What is it about her that I think finds so many of us sharing in this grief somehow?
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, first of all, the death of the Queen has been seismic. It's disorientating because she's been the centrepiece of British society for so long. She's sewn into our psyche in the Commonwealth as well. And it was such a surprise because, you know, just 2 days ago, she was meeting her 15th Prime Minister. So we all felt sure she was going to be sending herself one of those happy 100th birthday cards from the Queen. So it was just such a shock. And also, I think there's a huge sense of nostalgia that she makes us think back to a time when all the world's woes could be solved by, you know, putting the kettle on and having a cuppa. And all those old-fashioned words like stoicism, steadfast, loyalty, decency, dependability. You know, in a world of fake news and so much political upheaval, it's something you want to treasure and hang on to. And also, talking about Britain, why there's such a sort of hemorrhage of grief here, is that Britain's going through a very tumultuous time. We've had all this political chaos. We've got the cost of living crisis, where families are having to choose between eating and heating, and now the loss of a cherished monarch. So people are feeling very, very disorientated. And I understand why, because even no matter what your political persuasion, the woman had class. She was the linchpin of the class system, yes, but she also had great style.
Cathy, we really appreciate you coming down to the Palace for us today, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again over the next few weeks. Cathy Lett, thank you.
Oh, lovely to speak to you both. Bye.